Now, we did a podcast here about 18 months ago. You and the little nugget. Now he's the number 9 at the Canterbury Bulldogs, Reed Marnie. And that was to go back in time. Gosh, time's flown. I'd just wrapped up. I'd had 2 years working with you and with Reedy at Parramatta Eels. I'm now at the mighty Manly Warringah Seagulls. You smile as I say that. Reedy's at Bulldogs. But when we did that episode, it was great reflecting you and your journey, and you were just starting to talk openly about your dad. And we'll talk more about that today. Reedy was talking about what he'd learned. So let's start there. I'd like to go back. When we worked together, you were one of the first players at Parramatta that came up to the guy with the shiny head and said, I wanted to work with you. Do you remember that first conversation we had and what you said?
I do, because it went into my scheduled gym time and I actually received a fine because we spoke for too long.
Oh, did you? I didn't realise you got
I don't know if I've ever told you that.
No.
Yeah, I think I got fined like $100 or something.
Was that Elk fined you?
The player group ran the fine system, whatever, but it set me back $100. But look, $100 well spent, mate. I got in a good conversation with you. I remember it was... who's this guy? Hey, how you doing, mate? I'm Shaun. I just go up and introduce myself to whoever's there. Figured out you're the mental skills coach, and I think I asked you what you'd studied, and I started saying that I want to study coaching psychology maybe in the future. I'd eyed that off at that time. And you're like, oh, that's what I did. So we immediately clicked and had some commonalities there. So yeah, it's been good, mate. We've been good mates ever since.
And our relationship has evolved that now you still do some work with us with our business performance intelligence. In fact, the Navy crew in Canberra, Ange and I were in Canberra about 3 weeks ago. We had dinner with Commander Dean Thompson and Sam Tickle, Petty Officer Sam Tickle. They said to say hello, and they said that the presentation you did in that auditorium in Canberra was still one of the most memorable presentations that they've seen. We'll get to you talking and the presenting you're doing now, because I want people listening to this to book the lane train. But let's go back to that conversation. I can remember being so nervous. Did you know I was nervous?
I think it's just a natural part of people coming into the high performance environment of rugby league. It's very intimidating. Even you see the office workers who work there every day and we're having lunch and they seem a little bit nervous just walking around us.
You look like animals feeding at the trough. They're like these big monsters, some of them up to 120 kilos. It's like feeding time at the zoo. Get the fuck away from these animals. Jesus.
Yeah, and I can imagine like when I was young and even when I first got called into first grade squad and everything, I was still nervous talking to people. So I kind of take it upon myself to go out and reach out to people and ask them questions about themselves, make them feel welcome and comfortable so that they can actually be themselves. And yeah, that's kind of what I did there.
Well, I did a podcast recently with one of your mates, Keegan Hipgrave. I think we only called you a wanker twice.
Yeah, no, once. It was once.
Once.
You mentioned.
So I am grateful that you were very helpful in supporting me to launch the program. Here's why I was nervous. I'd been an athlete, middle distance runner, track and field, and then I transitioned into strength and conditioning. So I'd worked with multiple teams around the world as a strength and conditioning coach. But this was my third iteration in sport as a mental skills coach. So I was still fishtailing, for want of a better word. Like I knew some skills as a runner because I got to a good level, talked myself out of going to a high level. I knew a lot about strength and conditioning. Do that for 15, 20 years, you pick up a lot. And I've always had an interest and was pseudo doing mental skills. But this was the first time, and I'd interviewed with BA and with Buckets and got the gig. And then I was thinking, shit. And I can remember doing the first presentation
Imposter
and having to
syndrome.
breathe. It was massive imposter syndrome. What have I said to you if you don't have imposter syndrome? You are a narcissistic arsehole. But then you and Reedy were the first two that connected with me. And in the conversation, you told me you wanted to study psych. And I said, mate, I will support you as much as you want. In return, what did I want?
I don't know. I can't remember that.
I was pretty upfront with you. And thinking
In return,
even now.
I can't remember. The only thing that I can remember you asking me for is to pay for lunch the last time we went and had lunch, because you helped me out get some interviews over in my documentary.
Well, that's going to go on for the next 6 years, mate,
with
the context
I
I've got
a few more lunches for that. But I can't remember what you said that first day. I do remember you, though, clearly saying you'll help me out, you'll reach out to your old course supervisor, and you did. And it was pretty much every step of the way, everything that I've come to you with, saying like, I want to do this. All you've done is encourage me and help me to get there.
So enough about me.
Enormously beneficial.
Enough about me.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah. What did you ask for?
I asked for you to support the work I was doing.
Okay.
Remember that?
Yeah. I can't remember, but I probably saw that as a beneficial thing for myself because that was something I wanted to get into anyways as well.
But for anyone listening to this, if you get nervous speaking, I totally get it. And anytime I start with a new sporting team or a new organisation, especially sporting team, I do feel nervous, but it is good because you're a good student, mate. You feel you got that imposter syndrome, and that's sort of catching up with, this really means a lot to me. I don't want to stuff up this. I want to get it right. But I needed a few people in the room, even though I hadn't run a mental skills program. I've run multiple change and transformation programs at KPMG and other businesses I've had. I knew I needed a few friendlies in the room to help me launch it. So I had Reedy, you, and one or two others. But I remember saying to you that, mate, because you said to me, how can I help you out? And I said, mate, look, if you can just help me support it with the boys, and I'll work with you one-on-one, it's confidential. But if you can sort of support me in whatever way you see, that'd be great.
Well, to be honest, I knew the benefit that it had, sports psychology and mental skills for my own performance. And I knew for Parramatta to get to the next level, this could be so beneficial for us. So for you to ask me, I was going to do that anyways, because I was like, no, this is something that the team should be incorporating, and it will only benefit me as well as yourself and the rest of the team if we can find a way to get these messages across to the rest of the boys. So.
And it was new for the squad at Parramatta because we know there's three, quoting Michael Gervais, there's three different parts you can train. One, you can train your craft. And I've said to you boys, if I ever start working with you on rugby league, your careers are over. Give up. 2 is you can train your body. You've got great strength and conditioning coaches at Parramatta. 3 is you can train your brain. And in that order, you've got to be a good footballer, get strong, fit, powerful and fast. Then we can train mental skills. Now, picking up on that, you were so enthusiastic in the workshops, or what I now called mind gyms. You remember a month later, I went up to you and said, Laney, dial it back a bit, mate. You're being too enthusiastic.
Yeah, right.
Do you remember that?
I remember you had a laid back approach. I don't know if it was because of the nerves or you were just kind of trying to get a feel for the room, because obviously you don't want to step into a room full of alpha males and then try and be the most alpha of everyone when you haven't ever played rugby league before. Yeah, I just wanted to express how supportive I was of it, and that the product that you had for us was really good. I think by that point I was kind of becoming a more senior member of the squad and had a few runs on the board. So if I didn't speak up, then I wasn't sure who else was. I was like, I have to do it.
Well, you ended up becoming one of the real leaders in the group on that. Before a game of footy, I think first game I saw you pre-performance routine, 15, 20 minutes ready to go out. You were sitting there. I thought you were asleep. Mm-hmm. There's a movie for people of my vintage called Weekend at Bernie's, which is a good movie. Have you ever seen that?
No, I haven't, but
your mum and dad probably watched it.
I was doing this thing like a year or two ago, I think it was, and my girlfriend would try and take a photo and I'd just act dead. And then someone mentioned that that's what happens at Weekend at Bernie's. Yeah. So
you looked like the dead guy at a Weekend at Bernie's, sitting in your locker room. And I actually remember asking Buckets, I said, is Laney okay? He said, yeah, mate, this is what he does. You do mindfulness just before a game.
Yeah. About 20, 25 minutes before, I'd sit down and meditate for 10 minutes. I meditate for 20 minutes a day anyway. So for me, it's just natural. It's kind of like a therapeutic practice for me. And I guess when I was younger, maybe it would be a more stressful time for me pre-game. So I just calm my nerves and get my physiology in order through breathing practice, and then get my mind in the correct space to be able to just stick with the process, focus, attention, never get bored. That's what it's for me.
So for me, it was a real, oh, wow. You talk about pre-performance routines, and they talk about inverted U hypotheses to get everyone in the right zone. And some players of that era would be walking around yelling. Remember Fergo? Going crazy.
There's some boys, Ryan Madison and a few boys have adopted his breathing practice that he kind of learned at the Roosters, I think, where they just basically hyperventilating themselves to get their physiology flowing.
Gladstone would say that's to give you the ramp up, the power
breath of fire.
Breath of
fire.
What
it is? Breath of fire.
Good boy.
So a few boys go around doing the breath of fire, but I always found that games that I started too nervous or feeling, some boys just really love that revved up, energetic feeling like they can run through a brick wall or something. But for me, it might feel good physically, but then you might get off the line too early, give away a penalty. You might be overthinking like your job in defence, and then someone beats you on the inside and all these things. And for me, getting my performance right was about learning patience and learning when to insert myself into the game correctly. And it was all up here. So that's why learning to calm myself, having the reverse effect physiologically, actually then benefited my performance. But yeah, everyone's an individual, and I've learnt that throughout my time. I don't go around recommending meditation to everyone. I just say, like, you got to learn who you are and what you're about and what you need individually, and then you can go from there.
You're a bit of a journeyman. Like, you started to really come into age 26, 27 as an NRL player. But when you went from Bulldogs to Warriors to Manly, I even had some of the boys at Manly say, like Laney now is so different. Like, when you were there, I think you're fairly quiet, weren't the professional sort of person you are now. So can you let the audience know just where you did bounce around? Because I look at you now, and I do, I say to guys, you're a good role model. The boys at Parramatta, I said, look, in fact, you were running the mental skills program with me after a while, because you can talk to a Dylan Brown or someone like that in a different way with the skills that we'd worked together. But talk to me when you were bouncing around a little bit, like, what were you doing? Where were you at? How did you overcome just the doubts you had, especially self-doubt?
You mentioned I started at the Bulldogs, and I think I was just naturally good at footy. Like, I'm skillful, my craft, my physical, like you mentioned, they were always going to put me in the position to be able to play first grade. And I started playing really well when I did come into first grade there, and that's when everything was flying high for me and going well. I had heaps of confidence and had a hot missus at the time and all these things. I have a beautiful missus now as well, mind you.
Who Angela Poon was asking about as soon as, when I said to Ange, you're coming today, she said, right, I want to know what's happening. And she doesn't muck around, does she? How are you going? You go, oh, yeah, footy's good stuff. No, how are you going? Yeah. Oh, you want to know about my relationship, Ange?
Yeah. After, I think I'd only played 15 games maybe in my first year. I scored the winning try in like a finals game as well. This is like 14 games in. I'd scored like 5 tries, I think, in 15 appearances. For a forward, that's a pretty good feat, particularly in the first part of your career. So I thought, not that my shit didn't stink, but like I thought I was further along than what I was. And it came out in my behaviours over the next preseason, and then the coach kind of started to see that, and instead he opted to reward someone else instead of putting me back in my position that I thought I had rightfully earned. But you don't ever earn that position in football, you know, like the jersey is not yours. It doesn't belong to you. You just occupy it for a while, and then if you're good enough, you get to retain it. But there was that entitlement from me earlier on in my career. And I carried that through. Eventually, you know, I was stuck in reserve grade at Bulldogs, didn't see the way through, and I was like, you know, get me out of here. It's the coach, it's the system. That's the fault. That's at fault here. Went to the Warriors, same thing happened. Still kicking stones at the time, and was pointing fingers saying, like, he promised me this and he didn't deliver, and blah, blah, blah. And ended up leaving the Warriors too, coming back home, wanted some hugs and kisses from my mum. Tell me everything's going to be all right. And then I went to Manly, and it started to happen again for the 3rd consecutive club in a row. And it got to the point where I now only had 1 year. So the first year at Manly was almost a write-off for me. Not really. I played a bit of first grade and stuff, but nothing promising. In that off-season, I only had 1 more year remaining on my contract, and I had to like really just look at myself in the mirror. And to be honest, it was out of like desperation a little bit. I was like, I'm 22 years old, and I've played 20 games of first grade, and I should be in my 80th game or something like that, because I know that's the talent that I have. And like, yeah, I may have had some obstacles along the way, but like I'm the reason I didn't respond well to those issues. It's like the common denominator here is myself. And what can I actually do here to, when my career is over, I want to be able to sit back and say, like, I actually did everything I could to be the best player I could. I don't want to be one of those blokes in the pub saying like, oh yeah, if only this guy didn't pick me, and blah,
this
blah,
coach
blah.
had a problem,
yeah.
That coach.
Yeah. So I had to look at myself hard in the mirror, and I was just like, you know what? I've only got 1 season left. I can't change anything that's happened in the past, but I can control everything from this point forward. And I went on to have the best preseason that I'd had up to that point, and I was picked on the bench round 1 for Manly. from there, I ended up just progressing minutes, opportunities, starting position from the front row to the back row, then both. Started scoring tries again, and then I was back into the groove, and it was just from taking some ownership and accountability.
What's your advice to people who may be stuck in a cycle? Because there's a cycle called learned helplessness that leads to learned hopelessness. And it is very external, extrinsic, no internalization, often no accountability. So you obviously walk past the mirror a lot because you're a good-looking rooster and you like looking in the mirror.
I'm too tall for it.
But when did you go, there's the problem. I found it. There he is. He looks exactly like me and he's looking back at me. 6 foot, what are you, 6'6"?
6'6".
120 kilos, big towering Hulk. There's the problem. It's me.
I don't know. I think it's like for each individual, it could be something different, right? And like I see some young kids coming through different systems and different teams, and you can tell they have the same issue. And like you can go and say a word to them if they're in your team, but like it's not going to really resonate with them. And I can give them the story of what I've been through and teach them like I'm you. Like I went through what you're going through now, but like you're wrong. But I'm trying to be your friend about it. I'm not like yelling in your face that you're wrong, because I know that's not the right way to get a response. But like,
the teacher appears when the student is ready though, right?
Exactly right. Like some people, to be honest, the most effective thing that I've seen is people like have to be moved on from their club or just receive a kick up the arse. And then that's what actually motivates them to actually open their mind a little bit, look in the mirror. And it's somewhat out of desperation sometimes, I think, right? So
when we met, you'd moved out of desperation. You had a good year in Manly. Year 1, you started to put some skills in together. That was 2021. Year 2, 2022. The reason I was brought into Parramatta as the mental skills coach is Parramatta had the tag as chokers. This is nothing I'm talking about out of school. This was in the public domain. 5 or 6 years previously, the boys had made the finals, only to bounce out in the first round every single year. Apart from 1 year, they got through to the second game. But Parramatta were known as flat track bullies, chokers. In 2022, I still say we, being part of the team at that stage, got to the NRL Grand Final. You were a bees, proverbial, away from making the Kangaroos tour. So you went from bouncing around multiple clubs, going well and Manly, bang, you got your craft right, you got your body stronger, you weren't getting injured, you had a couple of hammy injuries, a couple of soft tissue injuries
niggles
on and
here
off.
And there. But yeah, I put some consistent time in actually getting my craft right. And like that's what mastery is about, just getting the reps and sets in and getting that exposure in. So the first year that I pretty much played all them games at Manly, that was me just relearning the craft of what it is to be a first grade footballer again. That was just the beginning. That's when you're still highly motivated and everything's back again for you and you have a fire in your belly still and still a chip on your shoulder and things like that. It's over the next few years that you actually learn what mental skills are about. That's when the motivation declines a little bit and you need to really learn like what it is to have willpower to continually show up week in, week out and perform regardless of how you feel, regardless of what's going on in your life.
So to put this in normal language, think about whatever you do to perform, and high performers, it's an 8 or an 8.5 every single time. What often happens with footballers or athletes in their first few years. Did you listen to that podcast with Keegs recently? And I spoke about the 3 trimesters. The first third of an athlete's career is you're in a squad and, oh, God, I'm going to play for insert team here. The middle part, and so for an NRL cricketer, for a rugby union player in Australia, a netballer, is about that 23, 24 year age where you're not new, but you're not old. And that's that middle part. That's where I reckon mental skills has most advocacy. And then the final part of your career, that third trimester is, hey, I'm playing at a high level. I now need to either tap into a more renewable fuel source, we'd call it purpose, or I need to train smarter so I can prolong my career.
That's essentially what I'm going through now. As well, that's what the studies and studying psychology and getting into all these off-field things now for myself, like finding my purpose. Yeah, I can see like what you just spoke about, the transition into that third trimester definitely makes sense to me.
So go back to 21, 22. I haven't really asked you this. The good thing about a podcast is you can get to ask people. You were already doing meditation, mindfulness. What made the difference?
21 in 22?
Yeah.
I think it was just learning to really, truly put it into practice on the field. Because you can do meditation and say like, oh yeah, you got to stay in the moment. You just got to stay present.
It can be a bit tick the box, isn't it? We all do breathing or we do stuff in the off season, but we throw it away when we're losing or we throw it away when we're winning because we're under real pressure.
It's about contextual practice, really, right? Practicing those skills that you did off the field, then on the field. That's the crossover has to be there. And so there might have been crossover at times previously before that, but yeah, that's when it really all gelled. And then on top of that, external factors that I can't control. So like I just kind of mention the things that I can control, right? Because that's all I focus on.
So go through for the audience. What are the strategies you do from a mental skills point of view? What is the training, the reps and sets? Because we understand you get out and you do work on the ball, you do tackling practice. I don't think you're kicking much these days, but there's a whole lot of work you do with the ball. Then there's a lot of work you can do in the gym, recovery. But just give people context. What does a mental skills training program look like for you?
So I mentioned I meditate 20 minutes a day. That's probably always been the pillar of my whole practice. Then I journal most days as needed. That's kind of like additional therapy for me. I'll do some visualization. I've gotten better at that as I've learnt more and more mental skills. I now am able to do it very kind of like context specific, and it's very good at simulating like different situations I might find myself in games, and so then when it actually occurs, it just feels like it's natural to me.
So you go into a game. So the big thing about NRL, that was my huge learning, is 24 games in 27 weeks. It's brutal compared to a lot of other sports. So you have week 1, let's say you play, I'm just making it up, you play Tigers. Week 2, you play Rabbitohs. Week 3, you got to look at the game this week. Then there's a review process. What did we learn? What can we take forward? Bang, you go to the next one. Do you do that every week? So do you look forward and go, right, we're playing this team on Saturday, and do you actually think about who is your opposition? Do you watch it? Is it that granular?
Not really concentrate on my opposition. One of the things I learned, like some people find this an effective skill, is like when you actually put a name and a label on the person, like if they're a superstar or something like that, it can become more daunting for you. So it's like if I'm versing Tom Trbojevic, oh my God, he's this guy from Manly, he's a freak. And it becomes more in your mind when you actually put that label on it. But when you just label it as the fullback for Manly, suddenly it doesn't seem as important. You just go, oh yeah, the fullback, he's got pretty silky hands out the back. You're going to look for this on him. He likes to skip across and kick returns. You make sure you have good contact. He likes to show up on rails, all these types of things. So that is one thing that I practice now as well. But yeah, I tend to just concentrate on myself when I'm visualizing. I like to use all of my senses too. So one of the skills that Aaron Walsh taught me overseas is like that he's taught some of his players over at the Chiefs and other teams. They actually practice visualization on the field before they go out and perform on the exact stadium, because you're allowed access prior to the ground before it. So I now do that whenever I can, and will get people to pass me the ball in the exact position that I'm going to be running the ball in, on that position in the field. Visualize like with great detail. So I already know my surroundings, right? So that helps with the visualization a lot. Visualize with exact detail who's showing up on my offload and how I'm going to throw it, how it feels out of the hand. And I can have a ball in my hand too while I'm doing it. So it's helpful.
I'll just get a bit nerdy for our listeners. Imagery is the big umbrella. And we talk about making multi-sensory. I'm sure Walshy would have spoken about that. He's a good man. Shout out to Walshy. So you bring in sight, taste, touch, feel and smell. So if I got you sitting here and go, right, you're at Combank Stadium, which is your home ground at Parramatta. Can you smell the grass? If you're on the grass, you can actually smell it. Put boots on, get a footy, actually do context specific. So the more real you make it, and the science behind this, and I know you're studying it now, we can have some, we do. Last Japanese we had a really nerdy conversation, didn't we? Your brain doesn't know the difference between the imagined and real. So imagery is really good for injured athletes as well, so they can go through those mental reps and sets. It's also good for athletes who aren't injured, who are wanting to learn new skills or to take the game to a higher level.
Yeah, I've definitely found that it helps me once I get out onto the field. Going through, I found particularly with things like specific context situations, going through like things where you make an error or give away a penalty, or responses to bad situations are some of the difficult challenges that I've always kind of found to be the most difficult to manage in the games. So I practice a lot visualizing those, but then not just making the error, it's about my positive response to the error and then experiencing a positive outcome from that response.
That's a huge thing for any sport or for any performer. We all make errors. It's how you
exactly
process, wipe the board clean and go again.
Exactly right. So I came up with like that, just kind of thinking about it by myself. Like I need to continually practice the positive response to the error. So I heard that the Panthers did it as well throughout their...
Have you heard the Stephen Crichton podcast or the interview he did, and they're talking about they played out that scenario in the grand final. They're 16 points down, 10 minutes to go. It is awesome. You listen to that and go, right. So when they did that, when the Panthers did that against the Broncos...
They'd already done it.
They've done it
in their
lots
mind.
of times in their mind.
Yeah. They visualize not just when things are going good, but when things are going bad. Very important in professional rugby league anyways.
Because just like, we just need to go back to our normal 2-set cycle and kind of grind our way back into the game, and kind of just, I don't know, even after the game talking to Ivan, we do like our G2, do the cycles and stuff, and kind of came down to our training, because we always do the drill when we verse our New South Wales Cup side, we cycle for 10 minutes, say, and we're down by 2 tries. So we're training the way that if we were down by 2 tries, how are we going to think? How are we going to deal with the pressure? How are we going to attack, knowing that we can't do an error? And kind of just, we were always good at that for training. And then, behind the post, that's all I was thinking about. We've got to refer back to our training. We've been here before. We've done it before. We just need to hold the ball and get into a cycle. And then after that, just the Prince just took over with how he played, and everyone kind of seen that, and just the momentum changed. So
we could talk about mental skills. We'll shift gears in a moment. For someone listening to this, because I use these podcasts, as you know, I've got you to listen to other athletes and podcasts, but for anyone who's wanting to go deeper on mental skills in their craft, whatever it is, what's your advice to them?
Be curious. I think that's important. Don't just think you know the answers. That's where I've run into a lot of issues in my own life and in my career. And then, when you kind of put your ego aside and realize that there's other people out there to help you and new things for you to learn, you realize how much you don't know. That'd probably be the main one for me, I think. Be curious.
Yeah, it's a good one. I think no matter what you've done, no matter where you are, when you lose that curiosity and it becomes a sense of entitlement or arrogance, time up. Time to hang up the boots, the gloves.
Yeah. That's why we're kind of going to mention the documentary later, which has my vision board on it and all things like that. Curiosity is one of the main values that I have in my life, and it's what I've found, not just on the field, but off the field, has really helped me grow into best player, the best person that I can be.
You must see my running notes. We'll get right into part 2 now, which is the vision that I had when I was working with you and some of the other boys at Parramatta. I didn't have evidence then to back it up. There wasn't a lot of psychological research. I've seen some to say this, but now I've got multiple data points. Absolutely, emphatically, categorically believe, hand on my heart, any athlete I work with who is developing themselves outside and has an outside interest, so you detach psychologically, 1. 2, it makes you much more interesting at a dinner party. 3, you're future-proofing, getting ready for what's next. Your career goes to the next level. So we'd started way back in the demountables. That first day you said, I'm interested in all this. And you said you'd spoken to Shaun, and I sort of helped you with a bit of that stuff around what you could do going down the track. I got so excited, mate, when you messaged me and said, hey boss, I'm studying psychology. So happy to hear that.
Yeah. Some people have this thought that they want to stay laser focused, right? Especially in sport, no, I'm not interested in anything else. I just want to be a successful football player. But I think it's inevitable that you can't play football forever. Whereas any other career, if you're not a
Unless
professional
you're
athlete.
Cherry Evans. Isn't Cher's going to go on to his 50? I'll make sure Cher's and Tommy listen to this.
Yeah. Any other career, you can kind of just stick to it the rest of your life. So even if it's not for a performance benefit, like you're going to have to do something after you retire from footy. So you may as well utilize the resources that you have available while you are still playing, which is like free education, which is unbelievable. Everyone else racks up minimum 50, 60, I don't know what the hex fees are like now, $70,000 uni debt before they enter a 70K a year job. Meanwhile, we're getting paid hundreds of thousands and getting free study. Some people don't want to utilize it. I'm like, oh, you know what, you can't.
Mate, when I found out what is available to you boys, I thought, well, this is awesome. 1, 2, why aren't you guys absolutely squeezing the juice out of this?
Oh, that's what I've been doing
so
for years.
true. And in fact, I had a couple of mates. I finished school in Dubbo and knew a couple of boys who played NRL from my year. And they went from earning nothing to earning a lot. But what happens, it then becomes inverse. So the average, Keegs told me, the average NRL player plays 47 games or 46 games, I think it was.
Because he just beat it.
He's just above average. Yeah. We said that in the podcast.
Yeah.
And then there's a long time for the rest of your career. So it just totally makes sense. And I'm a big believer about this, Laney, with everyone I work with, no matter what vocation. Cross-training, doing other activities, learning outside, it just helps you be a better version of who you are.
Yeah. And from a performance perspective, right, if you don't have anything else that matters to you in your life or any other potential source of income, like how much more stressful is that going to create an experience when you're trying to perform, and then when you're reviewing your performance, and then when you're trying to come up with ways to perform better? Like you're just going to be so stressed all the time, and then that's bound to result in poorer performance because you're just not physiologically capable of producing the cognitive skills that you need to be able to, and
unless you do too much.
practice.
Remember I said to you when you started studying, I said, mate, 1,
Yeah,
I'm really happy for you.
Yeah.
2, don't overanalyze what you're doing too much.
Yeah.
Does that make sense now, me saying that? Because when you're playing sport, I think it helps to know a little bit, but if you analyze it too much, it'll do your head in. Does that make sense to you now?
Yeah. Well, like from what I'm studying as well, I'm obviously studying like the best possible case. Like theoretically everything should be like this, and then in practice things just don't really work out as much. But it's easy to look at things through a theoretical frame and say like, why isn't it done like that? Why isn't it done like that? And then it makes me more frustrated. And it's like, well, I just need to accept the fact that I'm just a player and I'm not a coach yet and all these other things, right? So that's when I can try and implement things through practice. But it takes a long time for things that have a theoretical basis to then be implemented through practice. I think it's an average of like 15 years or something for something that's been proven theoretically and in different studies and stuff like that to actually be incorporated through practice. So
yeah, it's 10 to 15 years on evidence-based research to come out and actually have utility. Yeah. And that's where there's often a dance between evidence-based information. And I find I'm often on this as well because with some of the work that I'm teaching now, I don't have data, evidence-based data, that they've been doing research for 10 or 15 years, but intuitively, and some of the leading research in other fields, we're introducing that. Yeah. So that's where it's a mix, because if you just wait for the science to come out, you're going to be sitting around. So it's that blend, I think, between intuition, gut feeling, trying different things on players, as long as you don't do anything that's going to maim or harm them, and then balancing that with rigor. It's a real mix.
Yeah.
And I didn't do anything to harm you, right?
No, I don't think so. I don't know.
I was winding Keegs up when we did the podcast, and I said that you and he have both said to me at different times that you want to be me, but a much bigger...
I don't know if I use that exact...
A musclier, more ripped, hairier version, but better.
Hairier. Yeah, right. Yeah, I think the last time you asked me, I think you asked all of you guests, right? Like, what's the next 5 years look like for you? And I was like, I don't know. Because I had to watch this interview again not long ago, our old interview. And I was like, I don't know, what's the life of Andrew May look like? Because even before I met you, I could realize kind of the gap in performance training for rugby league in my experience was always like there was no mental skills training available for me. So all these practices that I've incorporated into my routines, it was all just me kind of figuring out through trial and error. And I was just like, why? I should have access to someone to help me through these things throughout my career. Like there should have been resources available, but there never really was. So I was like, well, that was the clear gap in the market, and that's what kind of got me into studying psychology. And there was clear, like, deep roots into my own personal story with my dad, which motivated me even more so. But yeah, that's definitely still a gap. And with my own personal experience of being a professional rugby league player and then also combining that with the studies off the field, I see that being two kind of sources of valuable knowledge that I could then potentially fill that gap with in the future.
Mental skills coach, performance psychologist, or head coach?
No, I think if you watch the coaches in the press conferences, mate, it doesn't look like a very beautiful job.
I love head coaches, and I know a few of them do listen to this podcast, so shout out to any head coaches in different sports listening to this, but they're a different breed with respect, right?
Yeah. And it comes down to as well, like, their own stories and their own lives, like what's caused them to want to be a head coach. A lot of them, you kind of mentioned about yourself, how you were good, not great. A lot of them, I see that in them. They were good, not great. So then there's probably this, like, element in them where they feel like they may be underachieved in their own careers, or they wanted to go further but didn't quite have the talent and the potential to do that. So then they want to help other people get there.
Is this a podcast or a counselling session?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah. So that's what I kind of see in a lot of the head coaches. So they're just so determined and driven. And to be able to sit there and cut up video at like 4 a.m. in the morning after a game where you just got flogged by 40 or whatever, and then go to training the next day and then do more video, and the amount of hours and time and effort, and like, you can just see it drives a lot of them crazy in different ways.
I don't think a lot of people have any idea how much stress and strain is on a head coach, especially Australia. I'd say AFL, NRL, then underneath that you'd put in rugby union, soccer, football, netball as well, but especially for AFL and league, just the scrutiny they're under.
The same time that you're going through all of that, you only have a 1-year contract, so you have no actual future promise of earning income, which is your sense of security, which is a requirement for human flourishing and health. And then you got people out there calling you a wanker and you're not good at your job and all this other stuff. So like, it's very difficult. And like, I don't really look at that as a something that I'm keen to kind of thrust myself into.
I think it's coming across pretty loud and clear. It's not the head coach, it's the performance mental skills.
Yeah, that would be better.
Awesome. Now, you mentioned a few times about the documentary. I got the phone call when you were putting that together. One of a few people you rang to say, hey, mate, I'm heading over to Europe. I've got this idea. Yeah. Who do you know that I could speak to in the UK, Europe, France, that area? So really proud of you, because a lot of people talk about putting something like that together. This was your idea, right? You went to the club, you had this idea to go on this pilgrimage. I reckon you just did it to get a free feed and a ride overseas. I've got you worked out, Shaun Lane. Have you been reimbursed? Can I be totally honest now? Or is the club going to ping you on this as well?
Yeah, I think I was injured when No, I wasn't injured. I was constantly injured last year, back and forth, injured, broken jaw, torn hamstring. At the same time, obviously I've been studying for a while. The Parramatta wanted to introduce a podcast of their own. And because I'm probably one of the better ones in front of a microphone.
You can speak proper and shit.
And I'm better at dinner parties, like you said.
So I just digress. I've just got this thought bubble. I can't lose this story. Wiz, do you remember when Laney, you and I were going to Canberra and I was briefing him what he could say and what he couldn't say? Now, I swear a little bit on this, but I won't swear a lot. But, I said, no, you can't say fuck, you can't say piss, you can't say this. You can't talk about stories in this context, and people listening can just use their imagination. And I said, look, I'll be playful, but there's an edge. And but like, how do I be? I said, be yourself, but not with your footy mates. And I could tell you were confused. And Wizard, you recalled this story later, and I think you just laughed because you said I went from being corporate to being bogan in the click of a finger.
Yeah. You do. I don't know how you do it, but you manage to do it. It's amazing.
Working in both environments and feel comfortable in both. So remember that briefing I gave you? Yeah. You rock up and you do a presentation and you nailed it. And you spoke about a girlfriend and you went close to the line.
I think it was the same thing that I mentioned here.
Yeah. And then I'm like, oh, and then everyone laughed and then you spoke beautifully, so vulnerably about your father. And then we went to dinner that night with a whole bunch of the Navy guys.
You turned it on Bogan level again after
But
that.
you
went
realise-
from formal, Bogan in the car, to formal in presentation. And then later on, when you're with the guys who you got along with the most at that presentation, back to Bogan
cheeky
level.
formal in the presentation, but Bogan, I remember you sitting next to me and you went, fuck, like, can I be myself?
Yeah.
And I went, mate, you can be yourself and more than yourself. It was just funny watching you like on that day. And then
It was a massive learning experience for me because, I'm so new to this world. I've been a football player ever since I was out of high school, really. So that's every football player just about too, right? Like you realize how much of a bubble that we actually live in. Yeah, how limited of perspectives that we've actually encountered in our lives when you start to realize, you start to actually expand your perspective a little bit more.
I digress only because it was just so funny. And I didn't even realise until Wiz played it back. But then that night you're like, who are these people? Because they've been in the beautiful suits. We love the work we do with Defence. They're wonderful people, what they do for the country. But they're also normal people. I think what you love seeing is they are normal just like us.
Yeah. That's kind of what clicked in me as well, right? Like no matter what our occupation is or what we're going through, whatever, everyone's got good things and bad qualities and everyone's been through some stuff and had good stories to tell in different ways.
Yeah, you got some great stories. Anyway, I interrupted you. I just wanted to close that out while it was the thought bubble. You were injured and you were thinking, what could you do to learn, fill in some time?
Some good memory. Yeah, so I was injured and we're doing the Parramatta podcast, kind of got that off and running while I was injured with my hamstring injury. And considering like the safety I felt in that and like they were encouraging me to be creative with it and I was having some sort of like some creative say in like what was happening on the podcast and stuff. So I kind of got the juices flowing a little bit, started to think of, I was already thinking about my off-season plans and holidays. I'd already wanted to go, like the world was just opening up from COVID and stuff like that again. I wanted to go to Europe and then at the same time I thought, I'd like to go and learn as well while I'm over there. And at the same time I could maybe claim some money on tax by going and speaking to some sports psychologists. And then I think when I injured myself for the third time, snapped my elbow, that's when it was really like, you know what, I want to film this and like I really want to make this happen. And I'd also gone through some bad times with my family and with my dad around the same time as that. So there was huge motivation for me around that period with the things that I was going through. Yeah, it felt more meaningful to me than even playing footy at the time. I was like, no, I want to do this. I want to help out other people in positions where they feel like they might not be able to have an answer or might be struggling to navigate their way through these problems. So, yeah.
Got a bit deep on you. Do you feel like that's your purpose, your calling now to use the adversity, the challenges you've had and let other people know, hey, it's okay to go through challenging times and you can actually come out the other side?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's something I wish I kind of had when I was younger through the challenges that I've faced. I don't really feel like that. There was always my mum and my family to support us, but you know your mum's just going to say things that like make you feel good. There weren't as many people out there like really validating my experiences and my feelings and my emotions. And then there was no one really there to help me with any sort of practical responses or skills to be able to develop to cope with it. So yeah, that's where I see my purpose kind of lies, in helping people in that area, because that's where I kind of have the experience now to do so.
We spoke about your dad in a previous podcast. Let's play an excerpt out of that podcast, and then with your permission, I want to ask a few questions about you and your father.
Yeah, for sure. My old man, he's been in a battle with depression, chronic depression, ever since he was a kid. He's had signs and symptoms of pretty heavy depression. So he's been going through that my entire life, and he's had times where he's been a bit more absent in my life as a parent because he's dealing with a lot obviously on his own plate. So yeah, like I said, my mum was a rock, but my dad was a a good base of support too for us. And
So talk to me about that. And you openly spoke about this. I love the article with Dan Walsh. The title, Father's Depression Battle Driving Lane's Career Best Form with the Eels. You say, my old man, Jeff, has had chronic depression since you were 4 years old. It's sad to see him down, depressed or in a rut, but you understand and accept that all you can do is be there for him and be there to support him. You also said, I'm very close to my family and that means so much to me. I understand the importance of being on top of your mental well-being.
yeah, well, like I said, it's kind of part of my normality in life now is going through these phases with my family where my old man may be in a rut, may be in quite a bad place, and we have to deal with it collectively as a family. It's quite difficult at times, but yeah, it's just part of being human. You know, you have these ups and downs in life, and it's something that we can't control. All we can do is be there for him. So we're always going to do that. We're always going to be a base of support for him to try and get through his own issues. And it's not going to stop us living our own life and trying to do the best that we can given our own situations.
Do you have any memories of how you dealt with that?
I was quite guarded from it as a child. I think my parents were very conscious not to make it an issue for the kids, and my old man kind of hid it very well. By the time that I kind of got into high school, did I start to understand a little bit more about it and actually how serious his condition was and that he was suicidal and things like that. I didn't realize that most of my childhood actually. So they did well to kind of allow me to just live a normal childhood without the worry of those types of things. So football was never really a way for me to escape or anything like that. It was just me having fun. And then I think once I understood more about my dad's condition, about the way he sees life and things like that, it kind of motivated me to make the most of my own life and the opportunities that I've been given, understanding that not everyone is lucky enough to be able to be healthy as me and be placed in the predicaments, in the situations that I've been. I'm very blessed and grateful to be able to do what I do. And it's kind of a motivating factor for me, if anything, to make the most of the opportunities that I have.
Pretty full on, like that footage. I know when we did our last podcast and when you did the talk, the first one at Defence, you were just starting to talk about it. I see you're much more comfortable now talking about it, but it's still not easy.
No, definitely not. I think it'll always be pretty difficult to mention that. I think anyone who's been through difficult times knows that there's always going to be emotion attached to significant kind of traumatic events that occur in your life. But it's been so therapeutic in a way, discussing it. In my childhood and in my teenage years, in my early years as a adult, it was like something I never spoke about because I felt it was like taboo, or you just don't go there, don't want to upset people, or it was just nothing that was really mentioned. But the more I talk about it, the better I feel about actually opening up and kind of telling the world, like, this is who I am, this is what I'm about, this is why I am the way that I am. And then, just kind of validating myself in that way and then encouraging others to do the same. I received an enormous amount of positive feedback from doing that, and people feel more comfortable because of it.
Yeah, I wondered how many people have reached out to you after the documentary. Have you had a lot of people reach out? Have you had people that wanted to catch up and talk to you about their experience and get some guidance?
I've had a few people kind of message me here and there, but not really seeking direct coaching or anything like that. And I'm not a trained psychologist as well, so I wouldn't be willing to really give any sort of advice in that regard that wasn't kind of like a performance relative domain. But a lot of people have expressed gratitude in me doing that, and I think I haven't had any bad feedback, but I don't know who would possibly give bad feedback to it. But it's been good.
You probably realise, mate, a lot of people have struggled with mental health and have had family members. I even think of my friends family friends. Mum and dad have got two really good friends here who are no longer on this planet as well, committed suicide, and it's really hard for them, and they didn't talk about it. And one thing I realised with you, I thought it was past tense, and if you're not comfortable to talk about this, let me know for sure. But not long before you went and did the documentary, you rang me and you were injured and you told me another story, and I felt it massively with the car accident.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I mentioned before about what motivated me to go on the trip. I mentioned in the documentary, my dad's had depression since he was like 6 or whatever it is. Like that's how long he's experienced symptoms of it, and he got clinically diagnosed when he was like in his early 20s, and then he's had good and bad patches, but particularly the last maybe like 10 years, the way that major depressive disorder works is they have depressive episodes, and when it's recurrent major depressive disorder, kind of the older you get, the more recurrent those episodes become. So when he was younger, they were less frequent. In the last kind of 10, 15 years, that's when it's been really a lot more frequent. That's when it's been the most difficult for my family, because with the more depressive episodes comes more suicide ideation and obviously attempts. So yeah, that's when we've come into a lot more difficult times and struggles, and like there's no foreseeable end to it for us. Like it's still ongoing. He's had it since then. It's still ongoing. It's not like he made a miraculous recovery and is doing all fine now, because that's just not how his disease operates. So yeah, it's always going to be a constant struggle for us. And when I spoke to you on the phone, it was a recent suicide attempt from my dad. Yeah, he drove his car into a parked car on the side of the road going like 90 k's an hour or something like that. Somehow didn't walk away, but he was taken to the hospital, was not unharmed, somehow unharmed. And that was the most serious attempt that he's had on his life. So yeah, that was very, very difficult. At the same time, like through my own injuries and disappointments with football and all these other things going on, it was just a pretty challenging time in my life.
I can remember that phone conversation, and I just wanted to hug you. Like I didn't know what to say, and I don't think there's many times you'd know me where I've been stuck on words. I think I just listened, and I said, let's catch up. Come and see me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all you really need, right? That's people going through difficult times. Quite like there's not going to be an answer for them that gives them magical therapy. There's no magical pill that makes them feel better. They need to talk about it though. They need to get it off their chest. They need to get someone else they need to receive validation that their experience is normal and that it's okay to feel bad, and that someone else is there for them that cares about them. And that's kind of the path through grief and through difficult times and sadness. So yeah, it was definitely helpful. That's what I've learned even with my dad, right? Because when I was younger, I wanted to help like cure my dad. Like I saw his mental illness, depression. I'm like, there's got to be a reason why he's depressed. Like there's got to be a reason why his mind operates like that. Surely there's a cure for it. So like that's kind of why I started studying psychology. It was like, all right, maybe if I just studied hard enough, then I could discover something that in understanding my dad better than anyone else that could help him. But I know that that's not going to happen now. It's about me trying to support him, and being supportive is not curing him. Being supportive is letting him know like it's okay if you feel sad, and it's okay if you don't want to come to the table for dinner when we're there at family time, or if you zone out sometimes, because that's a huge part of his condition. So yeah.
How young are you now?
Young. I'm 29 years wise.
Well, it's made you. It's been a lot of pain.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of heartache, but I can see you've really learned a lot the last few years. Even just the way you're talking to me about it now. I'm going to give you a hug at the end. I'm learning this from Keegs. Like he's like a Labrador. I said, you've got to give your mates a hug. But I'm really proud of you. Yeah. Because you could have shied away from this. You could have just gone, no, fuck it. I'll just leave it and just bottle it up. You could have had anger, and I know you did in your earlier years. I can't imagine what it's like, mate, but I know there's a lot of people who are going through similar. And why I'm proud of you is you're not shying away from it. You're talking about it openly, but you're also being proactive. Like even just reflect on what you've just said then. Now it's almost you're fathering your father. Yeah. Have you thought of that? Like it's shifted almost, that you're now learning more, supporting more.
I had that thought a few years back actually. When I'm like helping him go through some of the issues that and like I've tried to learn about the psychology of how it works. Feels like sometimes I'm fathering my father, which is a very weird predicament to be in for a 20-something year old. But yeah, I'm just there to support and help him, and then anyone else is in similar situation too.
Has he watched the documentary?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think him and my mum both watched it, and they said, "Great job." Like my parents are like the bedrock of everything that I've done in my whole life. Like they've instilled all the values that I have, and not just through my dad's experience, my mum's experience, our whole experience as a family. That's how I've found purpose. They've done nothing but support me the whole way. So many people could have shied away from wanting me to go and shed light on all these things that our family's been through, but they were completely supportive of it. They can see the benefit that it can bring to other people as well. And that's been a huge part of everything I've learned since I was young, is about being empathetic, compassionate, and helping other people, altruism, things like that. So yeah, I'm just a product of their parenting essentially, and a bunch of other things I've been through in my life. But
when you talk about mental health as an umbrella, from deficit model to people who are struggling, stress, anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, right through to high-end performance, let's shift the focus on the interview and the conversation towards that. You interviewed a lot of high performers. Like, I was positively envious. Like, you interviewed some rock stars over there. Talk to me about some of the interviews and what stood out to you.
So Matty Ryan, who's the Socceroos captain, goalkeeper, I spoke to him in Amsterdam. Fantastic place. None of that. None of that off-season mischief. Although, like, you walk on the street there, it just stinks.
It's not everywhere. Yeah.
It just stinks.
Well, same as in Vegas and American Outs.
Yeah, right.
Horrible smell.
Yeah. Oh, the worst. But anyways, I spoke to him. What I noticed there is just like, and I kind of already knew this, but it just reiterated it for me further, was how similar so many of the challenges that athletes face are, just in different contexts. He's a goalkeeper, so he barely moves in his same position the whole time, and it's soccer, a completely different sport, and he's going through similar challenges to what I face. The only difference is the sport that we're playing, the shape of the ball, all these other things, but in our mind, like, the same experiences are occurring. So it's like the generalizability of like these mental skills is so profound, so strong, to be able to learn and craft them to whatever difficulties you're facing in your life. That's kind of what I learnt from his experience.
My approach, around the mental side of the game and dealing with everything and the mentality, it's never to be too up and never to be too down. And at the end of the day, professional sport, it's not easy, Like, you got two teams and individuals in each team trying their heart out to win a match. More often than not, you can play the match many times and there'll be a different result because the margin of difference is so small. So, that's the way it goes. And yeah, like I said, I think it's important not to get too disappointed and too down about anything. You just cop it on the chin, learn from it and move forward. I think the mental side, I think if that is faltering, then everything else falters. So for me, it's the most important thing, and you can actually work on it and train on it to be even more resilient and to be even more, have that killer instinct to be a winner and have that winning mentality. And that's where I feel I'm at today. It's been a constant progression and development for me, and yeah, I'm always learning and continuing to try and make it even better.
The thing for me was, I think, as well, with every step of the way, if I then had failures, it's not to let the failures and the negativity take over.
Define you, huh?
Yeah, exactly right. Because negativity can be so resounding in your mind. Like, it's easy to pay attention to bad things when they happen, but I think having that self-belief and constantly reminding yourself of what you're good at and things that you've done really well in the past, that's probably what's helped me the most. Yeah, I learnt some other valuable insights from Jeremy Snape, from Aaron Walsh.
Jeremy Snape, so I love Snape, his work, and he's been a big influence. In fact, when I started at Parramatta, I rang up Snape because I'd met him through cricket circles when I was a strength and conditioning coach. Because he went from playing, and Jeremy's story is not dissimilar to mine, good, not great, played a couple of one-days.
He was good.
I don't say as a cricketer.
Yeah.
He was very good spinner.
He played for England still.
He did. He played for England, but he didn't go to that next level as a test player.
Yeah, right. That's what his goals were.
So his drive.
Because he talks about himself like he was good, not great. And then I see he played one days and 2020s for England. And I'm like, mate, you're a gun.
His good is amazing compared to most cricketers. Yeah. But he didn't occupy, interesting you said about elite coaches or head coaches. They've often been a good coach. They've played NRL or they've played rugby union or played AFL, but they're not a rock star. Like you sometimes ask a Joey Johns or Mark Waugh in cricket, what do you do? They just do this. No, but can you explain what you do?
Yeah.
They are that competent. They have an unconscious competence.
Yeah, which is mastery, right?
Absolutely.
Unconscious competence.
Mastery, but then not knowing how to show others.
Yeah. Very interesting.
So Snapey, Jeremy Snape, I love his messages. What did you learn from Jeremy?
He kind of brought it back to his similar experiences playing cricket as well, some of the things he learnt, and then how that also applies to like everyday life. Some valuable lessons around coping with stress and self-regulating, around teamwork and leadership, creating a safe environment. That's super important in rugby league. That's probably just as important, maybe more important than individual mental skills in rugby league, because everything you do is as a team, essentially. Everything that each individual does is in pursuit of the team goal. So, he provided some great insights around that.
We all talk about high performance, but our brain was built for safety. So our brain doesn't like novel things. It doesn't like uncertain things. It doesn't like things that are out of our control. So every time we get those factors, what's going to be the result? Am I going to be fit for this match? Why does my boss want to see me? All of these uncertain new situations that come at us. If they're constantly swirling around our psychological environment, then we can feel like we can't cope with those pressures. And they move from being a normal work challenge to a threat. And it's not a threat like we used to have as cavemen and women, a threat to our lives. It's a threat to our self-esteem and our pride and professional reputation. There's a big model in psychology, isn't there, around control the controllables. Yeah. I can't control the result, but I can control my positioning, my communication, my body language, my fitness, my warm-up, all of that stuff. But actually part of it as well is that accepting that you can't control everything and being instinctive and letting it adapt and be free and explore.
Walsh just gave me some really great practical insights, Aaron Walsh. He's worked in rugby and he's now working in rugby league with the Newcastle Knights, but he's worked in rugby for so long in a whole bunch of different sports. He's the one who gave me the visualisation technique of going out onto the field and actually experiencing and feeling and smelling and listening, which creates such a more detailed image for me to be able to practice that. He also talked about things around cultural influences, because he's worked a lot over in New Zealand. So we spoke about how different cultures perceive things and how particularly men from Pacifica backgrounds, they don't have individualized perception of the world. It's all collective. So you ask them, like, what's your purpose? Why do you play footy? And it's always about their family. It's not about them. So incorporating their family into practices that you're doing as a team and as a club, and that's all very important, and including their culture in parts of that too, which is what he's done over at the Chiefs. Super impressive.
I was looking out across this field and there were 400 young fellas in the minor league complex. And I asked the manager at the time, hey, how many of these guys make it to the big leagues? He's like, about 7%. I was like, okay, well, they all look the same. They're all physically in good nick and they can all throw hard and hit the ball a mile. What's the point of difference? And he said, it's all upstairs. And I just looked back and said, what do you do about that? He's like, nothing, and walked away. And it was sort of like this light bulb explosion moment, like we have all these people with massive potential. Yeah. They can't translate it into delivering when it matters. And we know they have all the physical and skill components to get it done, but they've got this big mental component and we're not helping them. Yeah, right. And so that sort of stimulated for me, and it's probably always been the stimulation is probably based out of care. Yeah. Like there's nothing more I hate in watching someone I know could be better than they are and not getting the help to get to where they need to.
I've come off the back of a season where I've had 3 quite long-term injuries in a row. Before that, I was voted the club's best player. I'm trying to move forward into this year with a real growth mentality. And what piece of advice would you give for me as a player?
Adversity is normal in life. It's what you do with it. Like, adversity and suffering and pain are part of the life experience. I think adversity, disappointment is the greatest fuel for growth if you use it well. It's when you go back of having non-outcome success measures. The hardest thing for any athlete is it's an effort-reward relationship. So you put in effort, you expect a reward. Most of that is selection. So like 51 players and 23 get selected. What's the reward for the other 28?
And Walshy openly talks about Owen Eastwood. I know we tried to connect you with Owen.
Such a good book.
He was busy with PGA Golf when you were over there, so you couldn't line up that chat with Owen. But the whole concept of belonging, and Owen talks about whakapapa. You're here because of your ancestors. The sun is shining on you now. And you said it beautifully before, it's not your jersey to own, it's your jersey to earn, and then you'll pass it on to the next generation.
And that's your whakapapa.
Whakapapa.
Yeah, it's as a Caucasian Australian white male, like no culture, really, like our idea of culture, of my idea of culture, is having a barbecue and a few beers on a Sunday afternoon.
Oh, mate, he's got a few
going to
chicken
pub.
kebabs. This guy's fancy.
Like, that's our culture, right? So for someone to tell you in detail and in a way that's digestible for us to understand and then feel it, like I can actually feel when they talk about how meaningful it is, and then it actually makes me want to be a part of it or be a part of something similar, because you know, like, that it just provides that profound sense of connection. And you look around some of the best teams in the world, like Owen's worked with a bunch of them now as well, and some of the cultures that he's been able to instill by utilizing that theoretical kind of framework is super impressive.
His results record, Owen Eastwood, is phenomenal. And he's not just with a team for a couple of years. He's been with teams for 7-8 years, longer.
Yeah, and a bunch of them at the same time. And yeah, his record's outstanding. I would have loved to have interviewed him, but he was, like you mentioned, he was
next year.
It was either me or it was speak to me or go to the coach the Ryder Cup European PGA team.
Yeah,
I think you made the right choice.
Well, look, do it next year. I'm sure you'll get this through Parramatta. Take me with you, and we'll get Owen as well, right?
Yeah. Oh, mate, I don't think you can be included in that anymore now. Being merely mental skills, maybe a few years ago, but
I learned a few things about you in the documentary I didn't know. I did not know you had the Imelda Marcos shoe fetish, 50 pairs of shoes. Is that correct?
I used to have like 100 pairs of shoes.
Like 50 times 2? Or
50 times, yeah, 100 pairs. I like when I was
just testing your maths knowledge.
Yeah.
They used to have 100 pairs of shoes.
100 divided by 2. Yeah, so I think it was while I was in New Zealand, and I mentioned how I was having a difficult time and blaming everyone else, finger pointing, and I didn't have family or no real close friends over there either. A lot of the boys over there were friendly, but they weren't super connected. They had their families and stuff, like what I just kind of spoke about. And so I'm over there, I think I'm 20 or 21 years old, and I just had nothing really, but I was getting paid pretty well. And then it's raining outside every day, and like I'm this bitter young Aussie kid going like, F these Kiwis, like I don't want to be a part of this. So I'm just like sitting at home playing PlayStation and getting on Tinder and all that stuff, like I mentioned in our presentation at the Navy. And yeah, at the same time, I'd go on an online shop all the time, and I'd get multiple pairs of shoes a week and get them sent back home. So every time I'd arrive home, there's like 3 pairs.
Foot too, mate. It's
like
an ordinary shoe.
I think that's why I kind of like had the enjoyment in buying shoes, because it felt more special to me. But also growing up, I always had hand-me-downs. I'd never get new clothes. So it was kind of that, feeling of something new, and I'd never been able to experience it, and it was kind of rewarding for me in a time when nothing else really felt rewarding. So I've now trimmed down a lot of the pairs of shoes and sold them off, and found a lot more meaningful ways to get that hit of dopamine.
Well, one way you obviously found meaningful as far as hits of dopamine is your mother had, we'll call it the Wall of Gaylord. Let's play this excerpt. Let's play his excerpt from Meet the Fockers.
Mom will be in a sec. What's that?
It's you. It's the Wall of Gaylord.
The Wall of Gaylord?
Isn't it nice to finally display your accomplishments, son?
Honey, look at all your awards. That's great.
He's my champion.
Well, I didn't know they made 9th place ribbons.
Oh, Jack, they got him all the way up to 10th place.
Oh, lady, I had to play that excerpt for you as well. Yeah.
Very relevant.
Is that similar to your family? Was it the same sort of wall?
Oh, yeah, it could have been. It wasn't just me, though. It could have been any of my brothers. My mum always says how proud she is of all of her sons. And obviously we've all been through difficult challenges together, and we've all managed to come away and become successful in the areas that we've kind of worked at. And yeah, she's proud of all of her sons. I'm just kind of the one who was lucky enough to be 6'6" and 110 kilos. And I learned a lot from my brothers along the way as well. Like they taught me a lot. My middle brother played one game of rugby league professionally for the Bulldogs. I make sure to feed him about that all the time, give him crap.
He can still say he's played NRL, right?
Yeah, exactly right. And like you mentioned, there's the craft component, the physical. Like I always say to people, if I was not 6'6" and 100, like there's a huge chance that I would never have played first grade because it's just so difficult. And like I'm just bigger than everyone else, right? So yeah, my mum's, to go back to the wall of Shaun,
Gaylord,
enormously proud, and it's just like an overwhelming sense of love and support. And I actually like feed it a little bit because I give it everything that I have. So
yeah, well, mate, I wind you up about it. It's lovely. It just shows the love you have with your mum and your family. Another wall you have, and this was in your documentary, you got a vision board. I didn't realise this. I think we'd spoken about it a few years ago, but I didn't realise you'd put it into practice.
Yeah, I think that was at the start of last year I started to do that. So I had all these other practices I was kind of doing. And just before, where we mentioned mental skills practices, I never mentioned the vision board, but that's a huge part of it too, I think, because that just is everything for my motivation and for my willpower and what drives me, which is a huge part of performance too, right? It's keeping me aligned to my purpose, what drives me every day. So
a vision board is very future focused. So for anyone wanting to know about this, it's normally a cork board. I still like to do it. Like you can do it digitally now. There's a couple of really good apps on that.
Yeah, I was almost gonna. I think I went to do that one time to just emulate perfectly the vision board I have on my cork board at home, so that I can all the time have access to it on my phone also. But it looked like a lot of work. I was like, you know what? I don't think I'll ever be in such a predicament that I'm in that much of a crisis.
You just take a photo and it's always there. What
Yeah,
I
that's
like
true.
about a physical one, it's real. So in my office at home, I have one as well. And the utility on this is you put where you want to go. So it's also aligned with what they call future casting. And we'll put a link to a picture of your vision board in the show notes as well. So there's some real science behind this. But do you want to share what's on your vision board?
I think I listened to a podcast maybe a year and a half ago or something. And it was the sports psych that works with Cameron Smith, the golfer. And he mentioned about crafting Cameron Smith's purpose and aligning his actions and behaviors with values that Cameron Smith selected. And then once he started to do that, his golf game just went through the roof and started playing out of his skin, became one of the best in the world and won all these majors and tournaments and things like that. So I started to do it myself, and it took me a while of trial and error to figure out things that I actually valued. And I always knew I wanted to help people and utilize my skills and my experience to go into high performance coaching and mental skills practice and things like that. But I always felt like my purpose was more overarching, more generalizable than that, because I had interest in other things too. And I was like, what's an actual purpose that I can craft that's just encapsulates everything that I'm about? And then at the same time trying to work through my values. And yeah, it kind of eventually came to fruition with the vision board now, which is my purpose in the middle, and then all of my values around the outside. And then I kind of just got a whole bunch of quotes and little passages or photos, whatever it is that kind of keeps me aligned towards those values or helps me get through particular cognitive distortions that I have, which are like habitual ways of thinking that aren't helpful towards me in particular circumstances that I might find myself in. And yeah, it's pretty much got all the answers for me to get through all of those issues and then to keep me aligned into my purpose.
Look at where you've come from that conversation when you said, I'm pretty interested in all this stuff in the demountable, was that 3 years ago?
Yeah.
To where you are now, it's a huge learning, mate.
I didn't realize it would be so much work. I thought I just kind of, when I was younger and more naive and thought I had it all together and I was performing well at the time, probably just like, I'm pretty good with it, I think it's interesting though, and like I can probably see a job in it in the future.
I'll just slide into it.
Yeah. But it's the what's the psychological effect? The more you know, the more you realize you don't know. So like, that kind of occurred as I was studying, and then I continued to get myself more and more into these types of practices, and the vision board was one of the products of that.
And it's a cumulative effect. I've spoken multiple times on this podcast, the book Range by David Epstein. You are the collective sum of the experiences you've had, and where you are is right now is where you need to be. And I've mentioned this to you and a whole bunch of people who said, I want to do mental skills. I said, mate, go for it. Be good in your sport. Go study, because you're going to need qualifications now. It's shifted for sure. But the other one is go experience life. Like go work somewhere. Keegs and I were talking about this before. Go work for a consulting firm, or go work in a bank, or just go work somewhere normal. And then you can stitch all that together. And I think you're in a good spot.
And like you would have learnt, you're talking from experience in doing that as well, right? Because you've gone and worked in all of those different scenarios, and now you're doing sport.
But I can say that in retrospect. As I was bouncing through that, I had no idea. I knew I wanted to get back into sport. And now the work I do, it's about 1/3 of my time is doing mental skills and leadership in sport. And I freaking love it. I love it. It doesn't feel like work. But what I'm learning in the corporate world and what I'm learning here in the podcast studio and doing digital products has totally helped to now scale mental skills programs in a very different way to what most other providers do.
Yeah, it's so helpful. That's why I kind of have curiosity as one of the values there on my cork board, and all of the different things I'm doing are part of like the photos that I have on curiosity. I think the talk that we did in the Navy, there's a photo of me.
I saw that on your.
It's on the cork board there. Yeah. That's like the pillar photo of curiosity for me. So I have like pillar photos that represent best for me what that value represents. Right. So for courage, I think it's a photo of someone standing over a ledge because I'm scared of heights. That represents me confronting discomfort and intentionally doing so to better myself. That's what courage is all about. Curiosity is about me getting out of my comfort zone and exploring the world in different ways that may be helpful or generate new ideas, and just feeding that curiosity that I have. And that's what the main photo of curiosity is for me, is our talk for the Navy.
What are the other values?
So I have playfulness. That's quite often like one of the key ones I have to continually come back to because I get too serious in some of the other things.
I smile as you say that. I'm happy you've put that on, because we've had lots of chats about kids play dates, play dough, play time, play school, and we can get a bit serious and get caught up in our heads.
Yeah. It's also part of this great book that I've read, Match Fit.
I see what you did there.
It is one of the key components, right?
It's one of the 6 levers. I haven't seen Wizard laugh this much all day. You lied, I won't tell you, Wiz.
Because I've never heard anyone call it great before.
Oh, it's good. It's got some good learning points there, So that's one of them. Humility is a huge one for me. Then I've got courage, mastery, curiosity. They're the 5 that I have. And the purpose is in the middle, connect with the world and share love with others.
Awesome. And you've heard me say this, Wizard's heard me say this multiple times, a really powerful purpose. 1, it's bigger than you. 2, it's future focused. And 3, it excites the living daylights out of you. Do you feel the difference when you talk about that compared to when we talk about footy stuff?
Oh,
I see a difference in you.
Enormously.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned before when we're talking about the different trimesters where it was in footy, and I'm like, well, football for me now is not motivating to go out and earn money and try and be a superstar and get my face out in the media and all these things. That isn't actually motivating for me anymore, because I've experienced it, and it's like it's worn. The effect of it is worn down for me now over time. So if I relied on that every week to keep getting me up to play this game where I have to go and bash myself voluntarily, then it just wouldn't work. My performance would dip. So that's been a big part of me developing that vision board is like, I felt less motivated to play footy. I felt the performance dipping a little bit at times, and like understanding myself and how my mind was working around that. I was like, I need to align my football and what I'm doing off the field, all these other things together. So that's what the purpose is.
Did you ever really feel torn in the tension between footy and choosing a life as a professional dancer? And that's because you're as smart as about the ball. We're going to play some footage on this on the YouTube clip as well. You and Alex Johnson doing the Endeavour Queens 2012.
Perfect.
How'd they find that?
How did the footy boys find that?
Yeah.
I think only a few have mentioned. I think my brother mentioned it. My brother mentioned it to me the most, paying me out or something. I was like, come on, I'm like 17. I think we copied, it was the year before, did the same thing, and we wanted to beat them, do better than them.
You don't.
And I stole the show. Like,
you're very big in dresses size. It would have been quite difficult to find that size for.
Yeah.
Let's finish a broad ranging interview. I love our chats. There's some laughs. There's some sort of serious stuff. There's some playful stuff. There's some contemplative reflection as well. Let's do the flip. Is there a question that I should have asked you today in preparation coming in here? Is there something you thought I'd ask you about or you wanted to talk about? Or the flip, do you want to ask me something?
Well, you're going to ask me about my speaking.
We're going to do that at the end.
You're going to do that at the end.
Plug.
Yeah,
just
right,
hang on.
Right.
Hang on, Tintin.
No, I don't think so. I think I know so much about you already. I'm a curious person. I ask you as soon as I have a question that comes to mind, and you're always ready to reach out and help me in whatever way possible. So if I have any questions, I'll be sure to send you a text. I'm just down the road now. I can just knock on the door.
Slowly, all you guys are moving into the lower North Shore. Yeah. Well, now you're up the road. We'll catch up and have regular coffees. You are doing some speaking, which I love knowing you've got some keynotes coming up. So for those people listening to this who want to get a speaker to come in, talk about, it's a range of topics. You can talk about the umbrella of performance or mental health. You can talk about navigating stress, anxiety, depression, some of your experience with your dad, performance at the high end as well, sustained performance, winning the Ken Thornett medal back in 2022 for Parramatta's best player.
It has been.
Mate, it's only a year or two ago. But for those people who want to book you, how do they find you? How do they get in contact with you?
At the moment, you can just send me an email, slane_1994@hotmail.com, or you can reach out to me on Instagram. The Instagram handle is slane_94. But yeah, obviously a broad range of topics for me to cover throughout my personal experiences. Only 29, but I've been through a fair bit, and yeah, I'd like to utilize these experiences that I've been through to help out other people or shine a light on some topics that we need to continue discussing. So yeah, so it's been enjoyable crafting a keynote. Actually, it's been a really creative process, and I think I'm starting to enjoy the creativity of these things now more and more with the doco, and then now this. So yeah, it's something that really aligns with my purpose, and it's a good way for me to discuss the things that I've been through. Quite therapeutic actually as well, going through my story and being able to share it with other people. So I'm keen to get that kicked off.
And maybe not now while you're still a professional athlete, but down the track you get paid good for it.
Oh look, it's not on the vision board, but it is an additional benefit. Like, you got to do something for work. Like, come on, we all know that. We all do something for work. So I may as well do what I'm good at.
Well, I think you've got a great message. I really enjoyed working with you at Para. I've really enjoyed watching you develop and evolve. And I've learned a lot from you as well. I think it's definitely a two-way relationship, and I'm really enjoying watching your career evolve and look forward. I think we're going to have to come back every 3 years. Let's just make it every 3 years. We'll do a podcast and see where is he now, there's so much growth, so much learning, even so much more awareness you've got in this conversation compared to our last one.
Yeah, I looked back on our old chat as part of the review of the documentary and I was trying to get you in there. I didn't actually end up getting.
I'm at the opposition there.
I didn't end up getting a snippet in, but yeah, I looked back on that and I was actually reflecting on it, going, I know so much more now than what I did back then.
But you'll say the same in 3 years.
Oh yeah,
and you'll say the same in 6 years.
For
and
sure.
The same in 9
it's
years.
crazy. It actually is mind-blowing stuff, right? To think like, how much do I not know? Like, what else am I going to learn in the next few years? And it's such exciting stuff for me to be able to look back and reflect on that. Yeah, it's really motivating for me, and I can't wait to see what happens in the next few years. And yeah, hopefully all these things that I'm talking about are off and running, and I've got other things that I don't even know are yet to occur. I'm just keen to enjoy the ride.
Dan, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me,
catch
mate.
up
Thank
in
you for
3
all your
years.
help over the years. Appreciate it.
Oh, mate, I love it. You know, I genuinely enjoy seeing athletes I work with flourish and blossom, and it's been my goal from the start. I think I said this to you not as articulately, but my job is to have people in a better place when I leave, whether it's in a team or working with them. And I'm just so proud of what you're doing.
I can see, like, with other people have always articulated that and said that they want to help people, but there's been no one in my life that's really gone out and executed and actually behaved in that way as well as what you have. And you can see, like, the help that you've had in my own career professionally as a footy player now off the field, and then other people as well. I can see it in Reed. I can see it in Keegan. It's so beneficial for a group of young men that often haven't been assisted in that way. So beneficial to have you around, and so thankful to have you around, not just for myself, but for all these other guys coming through.
Oh, you're making me feel emotional. Come give me a hug. Keegan will be proud. He said, "You got to hug your mates more." Thank you, mate.
I'm not a hugger either, honestly.
I could see how awkward you were.
Yeah, like, I'm too tall, first of all, but then, like, it just wasn't a thing in my family, showing affection. I know you said the same thing,
Mate,
right?
like, if my mates now know that I'm hugging them more, they're like,
Yeah.
"You all right?"
It
Like,
still feels weird.
something you want to tell us? Like, no, I just want to hug my mates
It still
more.
feels like I'm not being myself.
Well, next time I see you, I'm going to give you a big hug and just see if you're so awkward again. Mate, thank you.
Thank you.